is one of our moderators, and Kim Carr helps manage facilities, and I help manage email communications. And we have Marty and Carolyn here, part of our original leadership cohort back there. Woo! Yay! We're here because they started all of this, and I just want to take a moment to welcome everybody. And today we have a presentation on life planning services with Stephen Dale and Christine Grabowski. And Christine is from East Bay Innovations, and Stephen is from Dale Law Firm. And then Amy Tesler there, she's also part of Dale Law Firm and is a member of our group, in fact, is a parent of a young man on the spectrum. And before we get started with the presentation, I wanted to first of all apologize that we are in this room, which is our normal meeting room. Didn't make a lot of sense, but we found out about 3 hours before the presentation that we didn't have the big room anymore. So I took a picture of the group just to let them know this is what happened. Right?
Thanks a lot for coming tonight. Part of this is, now I am recording this. It's just recording Christine and I, so and here's the dumb joke. You're not going to be on camera unless you jump behind me, and I prefer you not. Okay, so there we go. By the way, for those of you that are watching, this is the door of inclusion. Okay, so that's what that's all about. I don't know. Okay, so let's go through this. I'm going to begin with this, and then Christine is going to talk about the project and that kind of thing. I want to kind of lay a framework. The other thing with this is that I'm as interested in what you have to say to me as to what I have to say to you. Because what I want to share with you is not just the project, but why we're doing the project, and just share with you why so many special needs trusts actually don't work. Now, for those of you that are clients, of course, your trusts are going to work. No. And you know, part of it is we go through it, whether we're talking about a pool trust or a special needs trust or whatever we're doing. It's not the document, okay? I mean, I wish I could achieve all of your wishes with a document, but if you think a document by itself is going to provide quality of life for a person with a disability, that's just crazy, don't you think? Okay, what the document is supposed to do, and this is what we really do focus on, is setting up systems here of advocacy and that kind of thing, and that's really going to be the thing. So what I would like you to do, if we can, here, and we're going to have to repeat questions unless, once again, they run up here and behind us, is we're really looking, when we get to questions and answers, we're really looking for your input too as well. And I understand. Now, just a couple of questions. How many of you have children that are with the regional center? So the vast majority, I'd say, what do you think, 60% were in there here. Is there somebody who makes absolutely every transition fair in the world? Yeah, there we go. Okay, so I know some of you because I see you in transition fairs, and I seem to make everyone in the world. Okay, so let me walk you through this, tell you a little bit of who I am if you don't know me and all that here. My name is Steve Dale. I am the trustee. Today I am here as the trustee of the Golden State Pool Trust. I am also the principal of the Dale Law Firm as well, and I've been in the area for quite a while. So if somehow you missed us, whether you're a client or not, I'm not sure how that happened, but we'll try to rectify that here. And as part of the pool trust, just to explain what a pool trust is, it's a form of a special needs trust that's allowed under state and federal law. So it's kind of like a cross between a special needs trust and a 401k. When you normally use a pool trust here, you don't get your own document, you get an account, okay? And they're very popular across the country, and we put this together some time ago here. And so that's what a pool trust is, since we have materials about the pool trust. That isn't entirely our focus today, but that'll give you a little background. As far as myself here, let's start off with this. This is my alma mater. This is Agnew State Hospital. By the way, as I start talking about this, I am not in favor of bringing back state hospitals. Don't misinterpret this. But I actually come from 3 generations of psychiatric nurses who worked in institutions here. And so actually, as far as that's concerned, that's my father, who worked as a psych nurse for 40 years here. That is my grandfather, who did the equivalent of what a nurse would have been. He worked in the state hospitals there for about 45 years. He actually ran the hog farm here and the apricot orchard at Agnew State Hospital. That's me here. I was actually a psych tech for 17 years. I worked in Napa State Hospital. I was the president of the Union at Sonoma Developmental Center, that sort of thing. That little fellow right down there, he's in his early 40s. That is my son, who did not follow the family tradition here. But I basically, part of this is it was very common when I was a child that staff would actually have their children come and spend lots of time, used to spend my summers at the hospital. I thought everybody did. I was kind of shocked when I found out later that everybody didn't live in a state hospital here. And the other thing with it is that my father really, in the early days of deinstitutionalization, everything was mental health. Nothing was IDD. In fact, if you said IDD, they'd have no idea what you're talking about here. It was all in mental health, and he worked very hard to put together programs for folks with behavioral health issues, is what we would call it today. And lots of programs were set up. There isn't a single program left. As we all should know, in California, our mental health system went up, and then it went into slow decay. And I would say, if there's some shining star in mental health programs in Contra Costa County, I have no idea where it is. And if you know where it's hiding, I would love to know, okay? What actually happened was the whole movement out of the Committee for IDD went a whole different direction, and that's where our regional center system came from. And just as an aside, we're always looking for money. I am actually on the board of the ARC of California here, and just as an aside, when you get those requests for assistance, the only reason that the regional center exists at all is because of families and persons with disabilities. And the minute that that advocacy stops, they will cut off the funding in a heartbeat. And then what happened for mental health will happen for us as it has in every other state. Going back to this, though, I got involved in doing special needs trust because I had some very bad experiences at Napa State Hospital where I witnessed abuse and neglect, and I did something really bad for my career move. I turned in somebody for abuse, and then I did it a second time. So I decided that I need to get out of the state hospital business and out of the psych hospital business, and I decided to become an attorney and worked at the Disability Rights Education and Defense Fund, having no interest whatsoever in wills and trusts. In fact, I recently shredded my grades because I don't want anybody seeing them, because I had no interest whatsoever. I was going to be a civil rights attorney, although I still consider myself a civil rights attorney here, and shut down the institutions that had served my family well, but it was time for it to go. Well, what happened was, when I was working at Dredif here, we used to get large settlements for our clients. They would immediately lose their public benefits here, and which meant nothing to me. They didn't teach that in nursing school. They didn't teach that in law school at the time here. But my directing attorney, a fellow named Sid Walensky, said, well, you're going to learn about these special needs trusts. And I said, well, Sid, I'm not really the least bit interested. Well, that didn't go very far. And I got into it, and here's what I found. I found that trusts could do a whole lot more than protect public benefits here. And they can actually set up a system of support and a system of advocacy. And I think that's going to be a theme tonight. And then it can do a whole lot more than keeping somebody qualified for SSI, Medi-Cal, and that kind of thing. I'm sure, if we were to sit one-to-one and really talk about what is it that you're most concerned about, having the best quality of life for your child, maybe benefits is in there, but that shouldn't be number one. Part of this is, and I'm assuming that you are in this very crowded room tonight here because of your interest in the quality of life of your child. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here, right? So got involved in doing that, started learning about setting up trust, and then found that, well, oftentimes there's a problem with trustees because, being trustee of one of these trusts is not an easy, intuitive thing to do. And the problem is, a lot of times family members would hand over the management of the trust to another, maybe very smart family member, and somehow think that they're going to traverse our regional center system and provide the level of advocacy that you guys are doing, and that's just absurd. So started working with a lot of professional trustees. We'll go, well, that's good, and they're fiduciaries. But the problem is there's a social service side of this. And so we started working with care managers. Now, the care management industry is dominated by the senior market, okay? And I hope this doesn't offend anybody, but there is a market when we're talking about providing services, because really what's happened is we've gone from state services to nonprofit services and open market services. So, I mean, really, it is quite a capitalistic thing. Got involved in that, and that was good. But, you know, providing for a senior is similar to providing for a person with a developmental disability, but it's not the same thing. So part of this is we were looking at the Golden State Pool Trust, which I'm the trustee of how can we do a better job here and really better service our beneficiaries here. And our board is all made up of parents of and family members who have developmentally disabled loved ones. And we were going, well, we need to find something else. And so my wife and I, who's very involved in the trust, traveled across the country looking for different models of services, trying to find something that would fit us here in California. And we looked at all sorts of different things. Somebody on our board ran an ILS and SLS agency, and they said, what you really need is an ILS and SLS agency, and started thinking about it and go, that's exactly what we're looking for. Just in a nutshell, and I'm just going to touch on this because this is what Christine is really expert in here. But basically, do any of you have like SLS services for your child? Probably
Is that the same as ILS?
well, ILS is very similar to SLS, supported living services. Yeah. So
Or ILS.
part of this is, in a nutshell, and she can correct me, supported living services is making sure that it's filling in the supports that somebody needs to live in their own home. ILS services is assessing what the needs are. And so an example would be, instead of bringing food into Bobby, I bet you Bobby could learn how to cook. You know, so it's teaching the skills on how to cook, you know, and do those things. I always think of ILS services as a job where you're working yourself out of a job. So the minute that you have achieved it, you've achieved that skill, you're out of a job, which is the goal. And then you move on to the next person. Supported living services is more long-term. So we were looking at that and going, that is exactly what we needed. And that was the genesis of this program. So let me run through this as quickly as I can, because really the star of this program is going to be Christine from EBI. So here's the thing. We were on a quest to better serve beneficiaries of special needs trusts. Now let me mention this as we go through this. This project is a non-proprietary project. We have fully embraced it at the Golden State Pool Trust. But as Christine will talk about, there are other fiduciaries and there are family members that are using this program. So you don't have to use any specific trustee here. The concept of partnering with was to partner with existing programs, because what we're looking at doing is trying to build a network of service providers across California and across the country. I just came from Wisconsin, where they're looking at implementing this. And the dream is eventually across the country, we will find agencies similar to EBI and some of the other programs and form this network, which would provide a support system for trustees of special needs trusts. The project is funded by the May and Stanley Smith Trust Family Foundation, which is in Corte Madera, California, a wonderful program that focuses a lot on programs with all disabilities, and it's overseen by Stetson University College of Law, which is a leading law school that deals with special needs trusts. The idea was to adapt and improve existing systems. Just look at this from a practical standpoint. The idea was not to create a new system, but find an existing system that's adaptable here. And what we're finding is not only in California, but across the country, these programs do exist. The Life Passage system will develop and implement a system of assessment and delivery of services of beneficiaries of special needs trusts that coordinates the efforts of all stakeholders in providing quality of life to beneficiaries of special needs trusts. Now, the system will work in participation with programs that can easily adapt to their system of delivery of services to beneficiaries. And with that, here, if I can get this to work, here is at a higher quality, lower cost, here, while providing agencies sustainable stream of income higher than the rates they currently receive from government-funded programs. Now, I just saw somebody demonstrate this, and I'm dying to do this, so I'm going to apologize. So I'm going to divide you right down the middle. Everybody on the left side, stand up. Everybody stand up. Okay, you guys stay down. Everybody on the left side, stand up. Okay, I just want to tell you, and this will only take a minute. EBI does a fantastic job with a rate that I don't understand how they're able to do this. But the turnover from these agencies, it is not uncommon that 50% of staff turn over here, meaning that you would be the old timers next year and you would be gone. Could you imagine running a business where 50% of your staff need replacing? Now you can sit down. I've been dying to do that. Thank you. Plus, to be able to command this many people is just kind of a head thing. Okay, but so part of this is our primary focus is providing a better quality of services to beneficiaries of special needs trusts and do things that special needs trusts have never done in the past. At the same time, providing a stream of income that isn't dependent on Medi-Cal or government funding. By creating a standardized system of assessment and delivery of services, trustees will have the ability to increase their capability to better serve beneficiaries by creating access to services not available to many beneficiaries. And as Christine talks about some of the cases that we've worked on, she's doing things that special needs trusts just don't do these things, like helping people with employment or actually finding housing. We don't do that, but now we do, you know. For instance, beneficiaries with a mental health diagnosis cannot access many of the services that the ILS and SLS services currently only have for folks with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Now, I understand we're talking to folks that have loved ones in the spectrum, and there may be some cross disability, but we shouldn't forget our behavioral health brethren, because I'll tell you, the hardest group I work with are families that have loved ones with mental illness, and I'll tell you, it's just really hard because there have traditionally been no services. This will bring a level of services at a fee that has never been available to them before. It will allow all trustees, including the Golden State Pool Trust, to purchase those services, broadening all of our abilities to serve beneficiaries. Now, while the Golden State Pool Trust is taking the lead on this, here, it's a non-proprietary project, and we did that on purpose. The minute it is owned by the ARC, or the minute it's owned by NAMI, or the minute it's owned by somebody, you just lost control of it. So we have an independent law school who is helping us put these things together. And when it's all done, it's not owned by anybody, okay? If you're a fiduciary, consider how utilization of this can improve capabilities. And a lot of work that Christine and I have done has been talking to actual fiduciaries about why would you want to do that? And this is where you guys are so important, because we're trying to get across to folks that families are looking for more than keeping their kids on a welfare program. It's not that the SSI and Medi-Cal aren't important, but that really is not the goal here. If you're a family member who is concerned about the quality of life of a loved one, consider how this could expand your ability to serve, how this could help to serve them. Because part of this is to take the advocacy that most of you provide for your loved ones and now we cannot replace parents. We haven't come up with that program yet. But on the other hand, having a knowledgeable advocate that knows the community and knows the services is incredibly valuable. If you're an attorney, counseling persons with disabilities. Once again, part of what we're trying to do is reach out to other attorneys to really change planning from document selling. And let's face it, a lot of this special needs trusts have kind of become a commodity, which is like, must get special needs trust done to protect my child. Well, we go back to this. I'm not saying that the trust isn't important, but what I'm saying is the document itself is not going to provide the advocacy and protection you're looking for. It's going to set up a system of advocacy, but it's only as good as the trustee and the person who's doing the work. So getting into this whole process is, in order to do this, just I as trustee, so I have over 200 beneficiaries growing every day here, and I can't just call up EBI and say, well, you know, Bob, I think he needs some help. Just go help Bob here and then just send me a bill. It doesn't work like that. We have to have a contractual relationship. So the way this works is we do this in 3 phases. The first phase, and this is very similar to what Christine and EBI and the other projects do. They first go out and they do an assessment and they figure out what it is that Bob needs and what they could do. With that, a plan is put together and it's incorporated into into what's called a distribution plan, okay? Which is basically the assessment's been done, now we get a plan. Now the plan might say, I think Bob really could use some help with his benefits. And also, maybe Bob goes to the doctor here, but there's some medical things where he could use some assistance. And the problem I get all the time is I'll have a beneficiary go to the doctor, and they come back and say, what happened? They say, I don't know. Well, that doesn't really help me, right? I need to know what actually happened and that kind of thing. It might be that he needs housing. It may be these things. We put the plan together, figure out approximate what the cost is, and we enter into a contract. Now, are we done? And when you're dealing with disability, you're never done, ever, okay? So the third phase is an evaluation. We look at how did it go, what was the result we got, and whatever, and when it's all done, then we kind of go through the thing all over again, go back and reevaluate where we are. It's a contractual relationship between the trustee here and the agency, okay? So with that, let me introduce Christine, and I know there'll be lots of questions here as we go through this, but basically what we're looking at doing is tapping into existing services here and incorporating them into the trust to help work with the trustee to evaluate what the needs are, but even more importantly, to actually have somebody who's knowledgeable who can help find the services and implement the services in the community. I will tell you, I was initially focused on the cost. A professional care manager runs somewhere between $150 and $180 an hour. There's one we hire on a regular basis at $200 an hour. And for what they do, that's great. On the other hand, my concern is you could run through a trust pretty fast at those sort of costs. EBI charges a fraction of that, although I'm afraid they're going to learn the market soon and probably start raising the rates, but we'll work at that here. But not only have we brought the cost down, but I and the board have been amazed at what Christine and her counterparts have been able to do with this. One of the programs we're working with is ICS, which is in Marin County, and we've done similar things. Anyway, I want to introduce Christine from EBI, and hopefully this thing behaves better for you than it did for me. Forward, backwards. Okay, right there. Perfect.
Good evening. Hi, my name is Christine Grabowski. I'm with East Bay Innovations. East Bay Innovations is a nonprofit. We've been around for 25 years. This is our 25th anniversary this year. So we've been doing this for some time. I've been doing this for only going on 11 years. So I haven't been around as long as they've been around. So I wouldn't say I'm an expert, but I do have a lot of knowledge. And I started out, some of you, I think, raised your hand for supported living, but does anyone here have independent living services? Okay, there's a few of you. And I think when I met someone earlier today, when I walked in, someone has employment services. A lot of you have employment services?
DOR.
DOR or the regional center, they also offer employment services through them too. Yeah. So, okay, so then you're familiar with some of the services that we offer. So now I'm a little off track, so. Flip forward here. I just kind of wanted to get a feel for where we're at in the room. So as I said, we were around for 25 years. There we go. This is just our mission. Our job is to create a personalized plan for each person that we serve. We currently serve about 250 people in independently and supported living combined, and our employment services, 200 people. And they have one of the biggest wait lists to get into our employment service department. Okay, so I'm going to skip through some of this. We're already going on towards 8 o'clock, and I thought we can skip through some of this stuff here. You have it in the flyer, and you also will get an email to you if you want it, so we can get more into the end and spend more time on questions. Is that okay? Mm-hmm. Okay. This person-centered approach. So this is about building a relationship. It's really important, I think, to build the relationship with the person that you're working with. It allows you to sort of build a picture of what the person's dreams are, where they might want to live, how they want to live, where they want to live, where they want to work, what community they want to be in. That's part of really being a part of the community. It's not just finding someone housing in some place that they don't want to live. If someone's from Pleasanton and we find housing in Oakland and they don't want to live in Oakland, then we're really not helping them to live in the community that they want to live in. So we're really focused on that person and their goals. So we want to build that relationship, and that takes time. So when we talked about an assessment, which we'll talk about a little later on, that's where those relationships are building and constantly continuing to grow. And also there are some people that have had maybe negative experiences with social services, whether you're working with Social Security or Medi-Cal. So the first impression wasn't the best. We can help in that area. We work with benefits, we apply for Social Security, we help people with their Medi-Cal, their Medicare, going to doctor's appointments or finding specialists. That is really what a case manager can help do. We can connect the dots or help go to the appointment and take the notes if that is what is needed. So you talked a little bit about funding already. I'm going to skip that part. So here we go. What is case management services? Basically, case management services is just an additional support, sort of a wraparound support to kind of connect all the dots, to see maybe where there's something where they can have access to it. Let's say, for instance, CalFresh. If you have someone that's an adult over 18 that's receiving SSI benefits, they never qualified for CalFresh benefits. Effective May 1st, you can apply now or tell your loved one that they can now apply for CalFresh. It becomes effective June 1st, but they're opening up online as of May 1st for everyone with SSI benefits to apply for CalFresh. I'm sorry, what?
What is that?
Yes, food stamps.
Food stamps.
It's the food assistance program in California. That's the name, California Fresh, sorry, CalFresh. Once known as food stamps. That opens up. So that is a resource. We would want to make sure out of the 200 people we are currently supporting in independent and supported living, we only have a small handful that are just straight SSDI that qualify to apply for food stamps. But as of May 1st, we did a training last month with all the staff. We are applying everyone online. It takes about 15 minutes. I can send Amy the link, and Amy can send it out for anyone who signed up on that clipboard that's going around, and Amy can include that link to sign up for CalFresh. So that's a benefit. So we want to use as many public resources as possible. We don't want to be dipping into funds. We want them to access what's available to them. So this is something that's coming available to most people in here, I have a feeling. We also help with looking for affordable housing. That sounds so easy. But that is one of the hardest things is to look for is affordable housing. If that is a goal, get it on their regional center plan that you want affordable housing. Work with an agency that will help you find affordable housing. Anytime there's a Section 8 wait list open and it's within, say it's not in Contra Costa County or Alameda County, maybe where you want to live in, but I'd say still put them on if it's in Solano County, Marin County, Santa Cruz, in that area, because you can port vouchers into other areas. It's important to understand how the Section 8 voucher system works. We call that like the golden egg because that will follow that person wherever they live. Section 8 doesn't guarantee you housing, but it doesn't guarantee you housing stability because it's 30% of your current income. And every year they reassess. So if they're starting out on SSI right now at $930 a month, they're going to pay a little over $300 a month for rent if the unit accepts Section 8. So it's really important that if you're working with an agency, if housing is important to you, you be open to putting your name or your loved one's name on Section 8 open wait lists that are outside of where you think you want to live, because they are portable. It's called porting. You do sometimes, but you can ask for a reasonable accommodation, and we do that a lot. A lot of people will get a reasonable accommodation to port the voucher into where they're living, because that's where their support system is. Maybe their medical team is. Afterwards, we can have more questions on housing if you guys would like. Healthcare, we can help with healthcare, finding doctors, dental appointments. Dentist is huge. That Denti-Cal, even though it's been reinstated, it's still minimal coverage, and there's still a lot of out-of-pocket costs. So we work with like the UCSF clinic, UOP clinic in San Francisco, Highland Hospital. I know it doesn't sound like everyone's favorite place to go, but they do have a really good dental clinic. You do have to wait for a while, but it is worth it to have to save all your teeth and not have them pulled. So you'd rather work with a dental clinic. We help with budgeting, money management. If someone does have a trust or has a problem saving receipts, or they want to learn to budget, it's important to learn to budget before your person you love moves out on their own. So having some of these skills, or if they're going to have a rep payee and they're going to pay the bills and they're going to be given a stipend or like a weekly allowance, it would be important for them to learn how to budget that. So we create very simple budget sheets. We work with different types of budget sheets because it's really individualized to that person. Some people are very computer savvy. They want to do everything online. Some people don't use computers. Some people don't write. So then we have to figure out and kind of develop tools that work for them. I know working with the trust, one of the things that we learned was like receipts were really important for people with special needs trust. So just collecting those receipts, making sure the money that they spent was spent on items that are actually covered through the special needs trust. So helping people learn to collect those receipts and how that money can be spent is just as important too. Even though they have the money, they still need to spend it on things that are covered through the trust. I have found one of the biggest things, and even I've made the mistake, is letting people purchase food. They can't purchase food with that money if it comes from the trust. In-home support services. IHSS, in-home support services, which is a benefit through Medi-Cal. So if you have active Medi-Cal, you qualify for in-home support services. They come out and do their own assessment. We don't determine the hours, they do. But that is an area that we help people apply for and navigate. We don't do the hiring, but we can help them and give them questions of things that they should ask, things that they should be aware of, like how many hours can they work a week? Well, what time can they start? What time do they have to end by? What tasks will they do? Some IHSS workers might say they don't want to do personal care or manage meds, but if that's what you need, you're going to want to make sure those questions are answered. So we help with IHSS.
What kind of things can they do?
IHSS workers?
Yeah.
Can we hold that question to
Okay,
the end? Because
thank
that can be really long. Okay, thank you. Addressing safety and in the community. I find this to be one of the most important things to hit on. So when we go in and we do an assessment in ILS, one of the first things we're looking at, can they respond to their own immediate needs, their imminent needs in an emergency? Who would they call? If they say if they have a stove fire and the first person they're going to call is mom and dad, okay, that's something that we're going to have to work on. It might be a little bit of a red flag, but it doesn't mean it's a deal breaker. It just means we'll have to work on emergency prep, and it might mean that maybe they can't have independent living, but they would definitely do well in supported living, where there's someone available 24/7. It could also be, right now what we're running a lot into is because so many people are online right now, the internet, it's wonderful. You can find out all sorts of information. I diagnosed myself with everything you can think of, even a chromosome disorder a couple years back. However, we right now have submitted several APS reports for people being taken advantage online. They meet people online. They hear their stories. I have people sending their rent money to someone else, sending cash. So I had someone recently send cash in the mail to somebody. So internet safety is also part of now, like, community and home-based safety. It really has. It's a whole new sort of a venue for people to meet other people, especially if they're more homebound and they don't get out much and they don't have a big social circle. They have just met an entire new world online. And there are those people out there who know. They know which people to get. I don't understand how they find these people, but they do. And then two people in the past month, we have probably submitted multiple SIRs and APS reports for people taking advantage of them and then putting their own home at risk. The other really important thing here is community. We all want a social life. We all have a social life. We have friends. We go out. We do things. It's important to build, wherever that person's living, to build that social and community and that life. It is important. Just as much as it's important for us getting someone to a doctor's appointment, if they say, I really want to go to the movies, or I want, can you help me advocate for money to budget for this new video game, or I can go, recently we had someone who wants to go into San Francisco. We're going to help advocate for that because that is just as important. Maintaining records, that's where for the fiduciaries and even for the regional center, we have to submit annual reports. It's the sort of like an IPP. It's the individual support plan. It writes out what their goals are for their year, what goals were met. A lot of goals are met, but they're ongoing goals. Maybe they've developed a system that works, but they require like that one person to come in and at the beginning or the end of the month, create the budget for the next month, make sure all the bills got paid. So we do that, and that's just an ongoing maintenance goal. But then there might be a new goal. Maybe they do want to finally advocate for a job and go work with Department of Rehab or the Regional Center for Employment Services, or they want to join a gym. That becomes a new goal. Social goals do not get pushed to the bottom. They are written in part of the plan. It's just as important as maintaining those maintenance goals. What is the process for engaging? So if you have regional center services, most of you have probably already engaged in with your regional center case manager and have it on their IPP, that what their goals are. So if one of the goals is finding a job and housing, it's outlined in there so they know to make sure they connect you with an agency that can help you in those areas. If you do not have regional center services and you do not qualify and you're ready, you think that you would like to have these services and you're outside of that regional center bubble. When we were talking about it today, I sort of like this odd sorting hat that they have. And maybe you need services. So this is sort of like a basic assessment plan, because from the regional center, we're going to get a collateral packet that has all this information in it. Your collateral packet with the regional center will have the goals. It has information about background and history, education, where you went to school at, or where your loved one went to school at. This is going to be a snapshot for us, so we don't walk in blindly. It's good to have that background information, so we don't always have to ask all those questions. A background check and credit check, this is really for someone who really wants housing. And it doesn't mean we don't work with someone if they have bad credit. We've all forgotten to pay a bill here or there, or let a credit card elapse a few months, playing catch up. But if we are going to work on housing, to know ahead of time is really helpful because it helps us mitigate and figure out why it is, and we can connect that dots. Because maybe someone lost housing because they had to go into the hospital for a few months and they got evicted because they weren't paying their rent. It wasn't technically their fault. So we usually can write something, get a letter from the property manager, or we realized recently someone had when we ran a credit check, there were credit cards opened up in their name that were not theirs. So we were working to get those removed. So having this information prior while we're looking for housing is helpful. Release of information consent. So this just allows us to talk to family members, doctors on their behalf. If we are working on housing, we ask first be able to share basic demographic information, name, age, ethnic background, because a lot of housing applications can be filled online these days. A lot of Section 8 vouchers for waitlist are all done online. So we might we'll always call the person first and say, hey, are you interested in this particular area? They have an open waitlist. Can I fill this out on your behalf? Having this signed allows us to do that. We always still ask. So it's really up to everyone, like why you choose case management services or the agency you work with. But I think you should choose an agency that fits for what you're looking for. Every agency is a little different. We really specialize in benefits and housing. We truly believe housing is the foundation to stability and health. It's sort of like the beginning point. And housing is different for everybody and what it looks like. Some people want to live with other people and roommates. I know other people who are adamant they are not going to live with anybody. They want to live independently on their own in their own place. Totally fine, cool. And we will look for that one bedroom or studio apartment. If they're willing to live in like a housing consortium, REACH type house where it's shared living, 3 people live together, they each pay their own lease, they each pay their own rent. That again, that is their choice to live in. It's not a group home. That there are group homes, and again, we've worked with people in group homes too. I work with someone right now who's in a group home. Lovely woman. She's been there for years. She's never going to leave. We go check in. I work with a man who in a group home, in a boarding care home in Pittsburgh. He's never going to leave. He loves it there. We do go check in because we help him sort of mitigate some disagreements he might have with the owners. And we sort of help with that tension. Again, because it's a relationship we built with the owner and the person who lives there and with the client who we moved in there. So this is just our information. It has the other agencies that are involved in the program. So we're going on to 8 o'clock. And I'm just sort of whiz through all this really quickly for questions.
So, and well, we can both
Yes.
share this, especially since we have the camera. Let me just, as we take questions and that kind of thing, and this is kind of what we're after. I've been doing special needs trust exclusively for 30 years, and have never been really satisfied with the results. Okay, and it's one of those things that's constantly evolving. I think the biggest thing that's missing is proper case management, the things that EBI has done for 25 years here, and adapting this. And the problem that you run into, if you think about it, you are your child's advocate, but who is going to be there to work with them, even just safety checks and that kind of thing? There's so many of these folks that are isolated, and there could be something wildly wrong, but nobody comes in and checks on them. Now, as we all know, they're individuals, so some have strengths in one area and one in another area. What we have found by doing this is by focusing more on the services we're looking at providing and less on the document and trying to work the services around that, we end up with a much better result. Not only are we looking for something where we can get buy-in from families, and this is where your input is so important, because a lot of people in my industry, you may find this hard to believe, but there's a lot of attorneys that are really out of touch with the people that they're actually serving. It doesn't mean that they're bad, but on the other hand, part of what we're taught about is how to create these clever documents and how to preserve somebody's SSI and Medi-Cal. But we go back to the thing I said in the beginning, it's not that those things aren't important, but if you think about it, that's not the most important thing we're looking at. We're looking for quality of life, and we're looking at trying to be there to be that support to get the best quality of life possible within the means that we have. So with that, the other thing that we are doing as this evolves, because it is an ever-evolving program, is that I know I had a wonderful call with, I hope he doesn't watch, but a very cranky client that I've had for some time, impossible to please. He hired EBI to work with his daughter. And what I got from this is something I've never had before. I actually got a compliment about this is exactly what he's been looking for years. Someone who will form a relationship with my daughter here. And the relationship is what's important here. Somebody to form a relationship with my daughter, and what he wants is something in place before he dies. Now, what we're normally focused on, or in my office, nobody dies, our trust mature here. But, the thing about it is we tend to look at this as crisis planning. So like when your trust matures, we have the trust ready, we have the trustees. And so what you traditionally do is you go, oh, it's really sad, your mom or your dad passed away. Hi, I'm your trustee, and you'll see a care manager later, and I'm here to help. We are introducing somebody at the very, very worst time possible, and somehow thinking that these folks are going to pick up where you left off and create some sort of continuity. That's absurd. What we are hearing from family members, including my very cranky client who has fallen in love with Christine, I think the jury's out still on me here personally, is that he wants to see this thing up and running so he can have the peace of mind today here, so that not just if he were to pass away, but let's say, you know, one thing about the disability community, it does not discriminate. It will accept any of us at any time. So the other thing is, what if you have a stroke? What if you get Alzheimer's? What if you have some injury? What if you can't be there to be your child's advocate? Wouldn't it be cool to have an assessment done and kept up periodically with somebody that your child actually recognizes? So in the middle of a crisis, we're not introducing a stranger here, to be able to really know that person and that needs and have that relationship and be able to work through these difficult events for anyone, especially difficult when we have a person with a disability. I will do something difficult for an attorney. I will be quiet now and I will try to listen here. Yes, ma'am.
Forgive me if I'm stating something that everybody else understands and I'm the only one that's confused. We have ILS services through the Regional Center for our son, but I'm confused about when you could start accessing this type of service, because you threw out a fee of $150 to $180 an hour, and we have trouble getting an ILS person that they can pay like maybe $15 an hour. The difficulty is finding good people to do these things. So
can I frame the question as?
At
go
what
ahead.
point can you start accessing this type of service? You said, you know, we'd like to do it before you're gone, but
Let me
while
frame
you're still here, so.
two parts of that question, if I have that right, and then we'll have Christine answer. Okay, first off, when can you access the services? You could conceivably do it at any time. Now here's the thing, let's say you're already getting ILS or SLS services and regional center services. Let's say you're getting it through EBI or another agency, okay? Actually, the rules are you can still engage them. You just can't engage them to do what the regional center is paying for, nor can they double bill for this. So for some folks, if you were to engage them early, it's okay to do that, but you can't double dip. Basically, if you're already getting ILS and SLS services, and you're basically getting the same services, why would you pay for that privately anyway? There may be some other services we're looking for, like assessment services and that kind of thing. As far as the assessments are concerned, where we seem to be heading, and we're kind of trying to frame services around that, is the recognition that originally when we worked on this, the concept was kind of a post-death service. But what we're getting from parents and what we're actually starting to do is to actually engage the service before death, if nothing else, just to have, and what we're looking at as we start getting more input from families, Golden State Pool Trust itself, is maybe have some sort of nominal fee here that will cover EBI's costs to go out and do an initial assessment that's ready to go, and maybe have them go out and visit your child once a year, twice a year, but at least enough so it's available. To build on that, Christine, what kind of dollars are we talking about, and how would you describe it?
So, well, the current rate that we've sort of all agreed upon, the agencies involved, is $60 an hour. But to your question about already having the regional center services in place with ILS, we do work with a couple people that do have regional center services from Alameda and Contra Costa County offices. We also, 98% of our people that we support are regional center clients. So I also know how important it is not to have double funding. So when I went to those homes, it was a group home, we worked with their group home and the regional center to discuss where could we help and be an added wraparound support. We came up with like dental, podiatry, and that is kept to our agency. We do not go to the quarterlies or to the annual meetings. However, I do give input to a family member who goes, or to Another fiduciary, they send their own care man. They have an in-house care manager. They send their care manager, but her and I met for an hour, and we wrote out a list of questions and things to follow up on behalf of that person for what the services they're receiving from Regional Center currently. So there are ways to have both, but funding for this service will come out of either the trust or out of the person's basically like private pay. So it's really up to the family on how they want to build it in to the structure. So that's how these people have decided to build it into the structure, was really pulling out pieces and making it define jobs that they wanted us to do. Because if we had a hard time, because this person doesn't go to the dentist like once a year for a Denti-Cal cleaning, they go every 3 months, because this is what the father set up, written a long time ago, with a private paid dentist, not a Denti-Cal dentist. Same with podiatry, it was the same thing, and the group home was finding it hard because they would have to take sometimes everybody with them to the appointment. So we thought, well, why bother? We can do that. We can schedule our quarterly visits around the dental or around the podiatry care. And this way we're not double dipping any funds, because I get it as the director of independent living services. I used to be the director of supported living services. That funding is really tight. So I'm not sure who was next, since the hands popping up.
Let me make one comment, and then we'll take this gentleman. You know, one of the comments I hear from a lot of family members, and I am a wild supporter of our regional center system, but a common thing I hear is they don't give you a list of all the services you could possibly ask for, right? I don't even know if that list exists. And it may be that the caseworker actually doesn't know, because the turnover of the caseworkers at the regional center is pretty crazy. Most of you know that. Having somebody knowledgeable about the services in the area, you know, and really to coach on how to get those things from the IPP could be very valuable. And, you know, you as family members, it's something that you end up learning, and that's part of networking, which I'm sure you folks do, about, you know, finding out what kind of services are available, because they're not always reasonably apparent. Yes, sir.
I have two questions. First of all, who authorizes the services that you provide? I mean, you say you charge $60 an hour. So who's like sitting there saying, okay, you're authorized to do 8 hours of, you know, doing this? I mean, who?
The trustee.
The trust.
The trust.
Yeah, the fiduciary, the trustee, whoever's hired us. We write, just like we would if it was a regional center client, we write an assessment, we submit it with the hours that we think. The maximum, we'll use no more than 10 hours a month to do check-ins or to meet the goals that have been outlined here. So the fiduciary can say, this is a little much. We'll authorize 6 hours, and can we only focus on housing right now?
The other question I had was, if you're leaving your child a house, and because you're saying, you know, well, how are they going to afford to live in the Bay Area otherwise? Do you do any management of houses, finding roommates, paying property taxes, a home upkeep, anything like that?
The talking specifically for the Golden State Pool Trust, different trustees have different things that they do. Our nonprofit is the North Bay Housing Coalition. Your housing coalition here is the Housing Coalition of the East Bay. Very similar. They're very much into housing. So what our nonprofit's core management skill is maintaining the house, making sure the roof doesn't leak, finding roommates and that kind of thing. And in this area, if you were looking at doing this, you'd want to talk to Darren Louds about that. But here's the thing that comes up. Housing coalitions and even fiduciaries, we make sure that the house is sound, the roof doesn't leak, the bills are paid. We are not social workers.
Right.
As far as doing that part, they fill in the gap. And this has been a real partnership here and has expanded that. I know for myself, and I tend to be paranoid, which works for me here. I hope and pray our regional center continues. I hope and pray it gets better. I am not sure if you look historically, because they haven't been around that long, that they'll be around for your entire child's lifetime. And I think you have to operate to assume that they won't, and do everything you can to make sure that they are there. And so, you know, part of the factors in this is to make sure that we have these systems in place. But the other factor that might make a decision, and this is where the fiduciary comes in, is Christine, actually they prefer to operate blind. They actually prefer not to know how much money is in the trust. So they are going to go through and make common sense decisions about what it is they think that junior needs. I have to look at that and go, well, that's terrific, but we only have X amount of dollars, and if we spend at this rate, we're going to run out of money in 10 years. We got to scale it back, right? And so that's part of what the fiduciary does. Our job is to make sure the bills end up where they are, have the expertise to know what we pay for isn't going to interfere with their benefits and that kind of thing. But we're not social workers. I will never see the vast majority of the beneficiaries I serve. That's where I need something like this. I'll take you, sir, and then we'll take the lady in the back, and then we'll work over here.
Thanks. My question is sort of a continuation of what you were saying. Is like
Can you
where,
speak up so we can all hear you?
And I'll repeat
yeah,
it too.
sorry, Yanni.
That's okay.
I was wondering, like, have you or is there a group? What's an estimate for like a 30-year lifespan, 40-year lifespan to live a decent life in Contra Costa County, this guy in Pittsburgh? Does anybody have like numbers?
I almost brought an article I wrote called "How Much Should I Put in My Child's Special Needs Trust?" I had it published, and in 4 pages, I basically said, "How in the hell could I possibly tell you?" And here's the thing that comes up, and we are actually working on that because there's a lot of actuarial costs that come up. Let's say the services as they stand today with the regional center continues, okay? Because what we're going to do is supplement, not supplant existing services. And even with this project, we're not looking at replacing existing services. We're looking at adding on to that and bringing services where they aren't traditionally. Now, if those continue and everybody with a developmental disability is entitled to appropriate services, if you can find them here, and so theoretically, it could be that your child's needs are low. We've been through 3 close calls where we almost lost the entitlement in the last 15 years. What if the entitlement goes away and we become like all the other states and become an entitlement state where they can actually cut out the services? Well, now you're talking about a very large number. As far as like giving you an exact number, we actually could work it out with an actuarial projection here, but there's actually 2 numbers. One as it is today, and one if we had to provide absolutely everything. And the absolutely everything number is astronomical. I mean, it's a huge number, which is why we must constantly advocate for the services continuing. So with that, there was a question in the back, ma'am, and then we'll take this gentleman to the side.
I'm interested in finding out whether you would or be set up to provide services on a private pay basis for people who are not, they don't have a trustee. So someone who is on the spectrum, earns an income, but needs advice, and their parents are not going to be there to do that for them forever, or even maybe soon, who knows?
Yes.
And how would that work? Is there a retainer? Would you do minimum hours? I mean, maybe this hasn't happened yet, but.
No, it actually has.
It's happened. We have a few families who engaged us early. We've had other families reach out from us in the past to do private pay. The rate, that's how we came up with the $60 rate. It was $60 an hour. It is minimum of about 3 hours a month just to keep the name there on the caseload, because we do have to budget and project staffing wise. So 3 hours minimum if you're within sort of like the Alameda County area, because that's where our office is in San Leandro. And we just bill at the end of every month. But it could be more if the person really needs support every week and go in there, like 2-3 times a week. And we just bill those hours we work. Again, we're going to give an assessment with a maximum hours. So usually the maximum hours, so this would be a good time to talk about maximum hours for ILS services for the regional center in Alameda County and Contra Costa County is about 40 hours a month, which equals out to about 9 hours of face-to-face time a week. And that was about 1 point something hours in the background for us like supervisors in-house. We have a few that go over, but they're usually transitioning into supported living. That means those people require more supports. They might need meal prep 3 days a week, needs help with their medications. They might not need a living, but it's anywhere from about like 40 plus hours to 24/7, 365 days a year. But to your question, yes, we do engage with families prior, and we start with private pay, and one of them we've actually transitioned into ILS services and into our ILS program.
One of the quick follow-up.
Uh-huh.
What about, say, emergency? Like, I know my kid, something really happens, I have one kid who's regional center and one kid who's not. And so the kid who's on regional center, I put his case manager in his phone, and, you know, he can't reach the rest of us, because we're trying to reach his case manager. The other kid doesn't have anything on an emergency basis. Would they be able to do anything like that then?
No, we don't do, the only department in our agency that has emergency services is supported living, because supported living is 24/7 and they have an emergency team. We've never come across that. Usually we try, if people are living independently, we would, hopefully that they would call 911 if it was some, medical emergency or physical emergency. But if it is more like they're stuck or they missed their BART train, if it's during business hours, they can call someone, and we definitely have helped many people walk them through. But if it's after hours, like after 7 p.m. at night or on weekends, that would probably rely, to maybe developing them. We would help develop a circle. Who can they call, like cousins or another sibling or maybe an aunt or something, kind of develop that circle for them, especially if the family doesn't live in the area or if they don't want to be the emergency service. But that's part of the planning, is helping them build that community on who to respond to. If they're living in an apartment, well, if you have your toilets flooding, I don't know how to fix the toilet, but your property manager should have maintenance on site. We would help go through that. This is who you would go to and direct them to go talk to the property manager. So again, it's about building that circle around them on who to contact for certain emergencies.
So the basic rules of the program is there are no rules. I mean, the core thing that we're originally focused on is assisting in the administration of special needs trusts. But what we're hearing consistently, not just from Alameda and Contra Costa County, but for a lot of the things we're doing, is the need for some of these services now. If the agency is interested in EBI, is in providing services outside of the trust, or even in my other client's case here, is that he would like to engage the services, but he also wants to get a plan together so it's ready to go. Then, what's really feeding this is whatever the desires, whatever the needs of the families we serve are, then we're working to fill in those gaps as best we can. Pam, you had a question?
Okay, so I'm really trying to understand your agencies still.
Okay.
So my child is not with Regional Center, but, I guess I built sort of an enclave of people to support him if something were to happen to myself and my husband. So I still don't understand. I read the brochure. I still don't understand what you guys do at the Golden State Pool Trust. I read it and I was like, I still don't understand it. What do you guys do?
So let's put it this way. Okay, how old is your child?
He's 21.
21. Actually, now he's supposed to live until he's 87, so it's hard to do math after 8 o'clock on a Tuesday, but
Yeah, sure.
he's supposed to live 50,
Yeah.
some tax attorney I am. But anyway, if something were to happen to you, okay, and you were to leave the funds to us as the trustee, my job is to manage the money, make the distributions and that sort of thing. And the other part of that is your son is supposed to live for 60 some years, okay? And so part of that is not spend all the money in 5 years and steward that money to get the best result we can. And our focus is best quality of life and also provide safety and all the other things. Now, I'm a fiduciary. I am never going to meet your son. And that, as a pool trusts are call centers. Now, if I were a private professional fiduciary, which once again, for those of you who give us your email, we'll send you a link. And one of the links we'll send you is a talk we did professionals. And we have a guy named Herb Thomas, who's a trustee, who talks about what he does. But go back to this. He may go out and visit your child from time to time, but he's not a social service professional. He's a fiduciary. Where EBI here, and Christine specifically comes in, is that she works directly with your child. In fact, your child, for all the child is concerned, thinks that she's the gatekeeper. No, she's not, that I am, but she's the one, she's the face-to-face person. And here's the thing with it, whether we're talking about in the spectrum or behavioral health or physical disabilities, having a personal relationship with someone who could, and I like her term, advocate for the needs of this person is huge. And you might think, well, that's basic, and hasn't it always been that way? And I'm here to tell you, no, it hasn't.
So you're a private, so Golden State Full Trust is a private.
It's an organization run by a nonprofit. It's a non-governmental program who works with persons with disabilities. And one of our programs in what's called the third party program, it's the estate planning program, is to administer special needs trusts and to try to combine services to be good fiduciaries and then engage the right folks. And this isn't for absolutely everybody, but I would venture to guess that a lot of folks, in the spectrum, this has a huge benefit here, is to partner and get the right partners together to have them communicate. Now, to get the information, there's a lot of folks in the spectrum that are good self-advocates, and they probably don't need a lot of help assessing what their needs are, maybe wouldn't appreciate it, okay? No? Okay. Well, I have 2 children that are technically not in the spectrum, and I would actually agree with you there too, here. But somehow I have to have somebody tell me and assess what the needs are. We go back to the whole actuarial thing, is on top of that, we might assess it, but we gotta make some really tough decisions because we gotta live within our budget. Not only do we have to live within our budget, but did I mention I'm paranoid? Because we cannot be sure that the programs as they exist today will continue, especially if we don't get better rates and more sustainable rates for our programs and stop this crazy turnover that's been going on with the programs.
Should I be worried about your program too? I mean, what your turnover is like and what your turnover is like, considering, we're hard, everyone's going to, the tech world and they're trying to make it big and,
Let me address something that you might find kind of odd for somebody who makes their living do that. I don't think you should trust the Golden State Pool Trust, and this is going to sound really bizarre. Okay, I don't think you should trust. I don't think you should trust the regionals. My job is I don't trust anybody. I don't even trust myself. Okay, because here's the thing: finding the right trustee. Okay, and actually we have materials on our website, and we're going to be doing one coming up, which is this. Golden State Pool Trust has been around for 10 years. Whoopee. I mean, really, in the scheme of things, that's not that long. We've been using Wells Fargo Bank, and with this proviso, everybody hates Wells Fargo Bank. I understand that, but it's not. It's, it's funny how when I do that, but it's not Wells Fargo Bank. We have a trust department we work with who does an excellent job. Okay, but here's the thing. 25 years ago, if you had asked me for the best trustee in the land, hands down, I would have said San Juan Bank. No question about it. There is no San Juan Bank today. We used to do a lot of work with A.G. Edwards. They were around for 180 years. Whoops, they're gone, right? Our hope is to be here forever. But can I guarantee it? And I will just tell you from my experience, we are run by a nonprofit. We are run by a wonderful nonprofit. I wouldn't trust a nonprofit as far as I could throw one because all you need is a change of the board. And I was in a major nonprofit that took a left turn and off they went. We actually have materials we're putting together on how to set up a system where as the road goes on, if it turns out that the Golden State Pool Trust is not the right service to have what we call portability, the ability to move the service. This is important for a number of reasons. If you give a trustee, if you give an attorney, if you give anybody a job that they're not accountable for, guess what happens? Services start declining. If you have something where they could be replaced, it's a funny thing, but they tend to stay on track. Without getting too far into this, because I'd like to kind of quit in about 8 minutes. What we actually suggest you do is this. Create a separate trust, okay? The traditional way to use a pool trust is to sign a joiner agreement and just set up an account. But the problem is, what if it doesn't work out? Or what if down the road, I think we're witnessing this today, what if down the road there is a better program that charges less and provides more services? Why would you not want that? Things are going to happen during your child's lifetime that we cannot even conceive. Some will be good, some will be terrible, but it's gonna change. That's the nature of things. Here's what we suggest you do. You create a separate trust. Let's say you wanted to use the Golden State Pool Trust. You would say that the trustee would be this Golden State Pool Trust, comma, or a private professional fiduciary, corporate trustee, pooled trust of a trust protector's choosing. You would name somebody in your family that has really good common sense, and they would review the distribution plan that was done once a year. If they don't feel that the Golden State Pool Trust, if they don't feel that the services that Christine is providing are what is best for their loved one, their job is to say, thank you very much, you're out of here, we're hiring somebody else. We're going to see evolution, that's the way it's going to be. Quick question and
Yes,
then,
no, just to repeat, so you're suggesting having, having a clause in there that would say that you would have somebody within your family who would then on an annual basis audit or review. Okay.
and it might just be, it may not be that the Golden State Pool Trust or the program is doing a necessarily bad job, but maybe there's a better program. Or one of our biggest exports in California is Californians, right? What if they move to New Jersey? We can't serve somebody in New Jersey. The thing about it, and here as we kind of tie this up, is the key is to be flexible. My expectation is decades from now, people will look at how we do things today and go, isn't that quaint? We don't do it that way any longer. And we have to be able to keep up with times, keep up with the resources, and that sort of thing. And that's why portability. So, no, I don't trust the Golden State Pool Trust. You shouldn't trust it, at least long term. We need to always hold our fiduciaries, our regional centers, our vendors, our politicians accountable. Anybody who's not accountable, they should be out of here. Questions?
So I have a practical question about today and your services.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we talk about a lot in the support group are the public services and how can we access them effectively? Are we accessing them effectively? What stumbling blocks are we running across? How many times are we hitting our head against the wall? And so on. And so if, let's say I'm one of those parents and I'm just sort of starting the DOR process, can I then come to you and pay you $60 an hour to help me get started? Or let's say that later on I decide, you know what, I know this much, but I need someone who knows this much. Could you be that organization that helps me know this much?
It depends on what it's in. Department of Rehab is really with our employment services. They work with that. In ILS, we've helped a few people go down to DOR, follow up with appointments, fill out the packets, get them signed up, have them meet with their job coaches down there that they have. So we've done that, but we actually don't go to the job and act as the job coach.
No, I just
But
need
we
to
do help-
navigate in the DOR process because a lot of times.
But we do help, like we have
Like a
even helped
consultant.
people and go down there and help them.
Yeah,
And-
because what we're finding is, so often we know our kids best,
Yeah.
right? And even then, DOR is not hearing about our kids because they don't fit they don't fit a cookie cutter mold, right? And so they're trying to steer us in certain ways that we know don't match our kids, yet we feel at their mercy, right? And so some of our kids don't want us to work with them either, right? So then we're fighting that battle
Yeah.
while we're trying to represent our kids' needs. Whereas if we had a third party come in and say, you're good, this person's going to help serve as an advocate for you with DOR or a regional center or in some capacity. If I'm willing to pay you $60 an hour to do that, you could do that for me today.
Yes.
Okay.
We would come in there and do an assessment first. We just wouldn't come in there blindly and
Right.
say, sure, we can do whatever. But we would do an assessment to find out, what are the goals and the objectives that you're looking for and how can we best help.
But you
Okay.
have the background and the experience of working with DOR and all the pitfalls and
We've had to
Stop, stay for a while.
we've advocated several times for people who, for some reason, didn't go through employment services to the regional center and use Department of Rehab and to try to advocate on their strengths and where is their path for employment that they're looking for. So yes, we've helped them, but it's still the person's responsibility to get to the appointment with us. We go there with them, but we do help advocate and kind of get a list of what it is that they want to do from them.
And the questions had to do with whether or not they have experience with DOR and can give guidance, and the answer was yes. Question in the back.
I'm hearing a lot of need for help making the plan. And that's really where, like, I mean, if I sat down for a week and thought about every single thing I ever did for my kid, maybe I could come up with it. But probably somebody has already done that. So sort of the template of, you know, all possible things in the world of your whatever you call this thing, your living plan. You know, it's kind of like ongoing operations support. Here's what I see this kid needing forever. And now just tick the boxes that you want, and then that's where you're gonna say, okay, now what's my funding source for operations help to make this thing happen? Does anybody have like the template of the plan of the stuff?
Well, you mean like an assessment template? Like, well,
No, I understand, it's just like
Unlike
housing,
oh,
rent, taxes,
Yes.
like, yeah.
We did yesterday to support your kids, what we did the day before.
You know, I've heard that request for decades, and I don't think it exists.
so it doesn't really. I mean, every agency sort of has like a template of things that we do, and there's like housing and benefits, and then there's long-term goals that we work through. However, you have to remember those things are going to constantly evolve and change. Those things will evolve and change. So as family members, the first one that you create, that can't be the one you're set in stone with. You have to be flexible and know that these are going to change as the person ages and matures. These goals are going to change. So you have to be okay with that. That's why annually, every agency, if you're a regional center client, you have to do an annual report to note all the changes and to see what the next year is going to bring. But I do think families, a lot of times when we go in and we do assessments, especially people who they want independent living, but maybe they're more supported living, I do ask families who do everything, you should take a mental note and really one day jot down every single thing that you do. Just jot it down, every single thing. Because honestly, as an agency, not every agency, we can't do every little thing. I can't be the one at 7 a.m., hey, it's your wake up call, gotta get up, gotta get in the shower, your bus is gonna be there in an hour. But if you're doing that now, then you know, well, maybe that's a small goal to start working on, to have that person learn. Because when they're not in your care and they're someplace else, it doesn't mean that your case manager is going to be that 7 a.m. wake-up call every day. But I do think it's important as parents, you take note of everything that you do. Be aware of all the little things. Because a lot of times we do have parents who want us to do everything. But realistically, that's an unrealistic goal. We have to, you know, with the regional center, it's 40 hours a month. That's not a lot of time when you're seeing someone 3 days a week, 3 hours. That is not a lot of time.
So one of the core things they do here, and this gets back to the premise of the project, which is taking existing programs and adapting them to the needs of not only trustees, but to families. One of the core things that EBI and services like them already do is doing an assessment here of what their needs are. And part of that is being aware of what is possible and sometimes being aware of what just doesn't exist, right? It's not to promise services that don't exist. That would just not be very productive. This is a skill that they already have. And actually, I have to say, if we had a lot more time, and we are blessedly going to leave soon here, I have been really amazed at the depth of information that they've had and the way it's equated to our beneficiaries. You man in the back?
Yeah, you're very patient.
I think that about a year ago, I called Pay Innovations and asked about ILS services. And as I recall, I was told that I couldn't even do my name on the waiting list because you had so many people. That may not be right, but my memory is that. My question is, how many people do you have available to do this kind of case managers that you have?
And for the camera, the question was, and this isn't unusual, there's a hell of a long waiting list for EBI. It's a very desirable program, right?
So
And
usually-
how does that work?
So the regional center usually sends us a collateral packet, and that triggers us to be put on someone on a wait list. So usually we say, call your case manager if you're a regional center, person, they have your collateral packet sent to East Bay Innovations for ILS. And then we call the case manager.
Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, it could be.
And you could be. I mean, and our ILS right now, we're trying to feed through it and go through it to see.
But how many, what's your availability to provide the extent?
We currently have about 30 staff in field that work in the field in ILS, that work in the field. 30 people that work in the field in ILS. They carry a caseload of anywhere from 6 to 10 people.
Case managers for this program.
Okay, so for this program, we are going to be using our independent living specialists, so they're like the mid-tier people, and our coordinators who supervise. That means we recently just hired 2 people, part-time people, to come in and help. Because again, I have to be in the office a little bit more.
Can I ask how much you pay them, what their salaries are?
Well, it's more than what our instructors make.
Yeah, but let me kind of partially end on this note and part of the objective here, okay? And this is a thing that, you know, once again, I'm kind of the Forrest Gump of deinstitutionalization. I didn't do any of this, but I grew up at an institution. I watched the promise of community programs for mental health, which turned out to be a lie. Here I'm watching what's going on with the regional center system and the struggles and that kind of thing. It's not that we're looking at taking EBI and programs like that off track. But the thing about it is, one of the secondary objectives here is that the services, not only of EBI, but the other programs that we're looking at bringing on board, they do a fantastic job for a ridiculously low rate. A lot of times, unfortunately, these folks who do fantastic work, they're not making the same pay or getting the same benefits that the barista that makes your latte is getting. And shouldn't we value those folks more? What we're looking at doing is adding an addendum to those funds here by having a commercially viable rate. You know, how they do it on the rate that they're getting from the state, I don't know, and God bless them for doing that. But if EBI is going to be here long term, you know, we go back, if they're going to be here for the lifetime of your child, they need a commercially viable rate of some sort. And the thing about it is, there's been this wonderful service that's provided that's good not only for persons in the spectrum, but for all folks with disabilities. Our hope with this, and this program has started small, is to build up a large enough book of business for EBI and the sister organizations here to make this a sustainable program, and ideally bring in enough revenue where maybe they can start raising the pay for some of these folks. You know, if my ex-wife and I started nursing school in the state hospitals at the same time, she just retired at full salary over $100,000 a year, full benefits, full medical, and all of that, which of course you give to your employees, right?
Yeah.
Of course not, right? I mean, aren't the folks who serve our most vulnerable population, aren't they deserving of at least a livable wage here? And this is one of those things that globally we need to be concerned about. But the other objective here is really to take these wonderful services before they evaporate and go away here and engage them with a commercially viable rate. Secondly, here, we actually have a scheme where we think that we can actually tap into some money, and it's possible that we may be coming back and asking for support where we might be actually able to pay for these services, which would cost $0 to you folks. Here's the thing, okay? And here's where we need to start thinking outside of the box a bit. How we're going to provide that lifetime advocate to a person with a disability is an ever-evolving process. And we need to look beyond just keeping your child qualified for a welfare program. It is not that SSI and Medi-Cal, childhood disability benefits, and all those programs aren't important, but what's really necessary, the whole concept of moving people out of institutions in the community wasn't just physically moving them into the community. It's being part of the community, not isolating them in group homes, because if all we've done is taken them from big institutions and put them in small institutions without helping them get jobs or be involved socially or follow their own dreams, we have failed, okay? With this, we have an opportunity in the evolution of providing services to take this next step, and that's where we are engaging agencies like EBI, and we're trying to help work on this, and we're talking to people like you, and we're very interested in hearing from you about what it is you are really looking for, and fashion that in a way that serves the community, serves the trust, and taps into these wonderful services, and ideally adds sustainable funds so that we can make sure that this program never goes away. I want to thank you so much tonight for listening to us here.